You may have noticed, you may not, that I put out a video similar to this earlier, but as we all know, I'm a little crazy, I'm a little bit of an overachiever, so we are doing it all again. Hi friends, my name is Jess, welcome to Books Past Bedtime. In today's video, we are going to be reading the top 10 thrillers according to the Goodreads Choice Awards. As most of you probably know, the Goodreads Choice Awards is an annual awards ceremony voting type of thing where Goodreads sets out the top however many books and all Goodreads users can vote for their favorite book of the year, and then at the end, Goodreads awards their top voted best book of the year as well as the top 10 ranking. So I really couldn't decide. I knew I wanted to do a video like this, but I didn't know if I wanted to read the fiction nominees or if I wanted to read the thriller nominees, and because I'm indecisive, I decided to do both. So the Goodreads Choice Awards is broken down into 3 different rounds. Right now we are in the opening round, which takes place from October 27th until November 8th, and in this round, Goodreads puts forth their top 15 nominees for Book of the Year within each individual category. So right now we are specifically talking about the thriller category. Nobody really knows how these books are chosen, if they are just chosen by experts at Goodreads or if they take into account ratings, reviews. We don't really know. But after this initial round, users do pick which books proceed in a way. So in the second round, which takes place from November 10th to November 15th, there are 5 additional books added for a total of 20, and those extra 5 books are taken from the top 5 most commonly written in nominations. The problem with this round is those 5 write-ins never really have the chance to gain enough votes to make it to the final top 10, so we are going to ignore this round unless something crazy happens. And then the third and final round takes place from November 17th to November 30th, and that is when the top 10 books are announced. Those are the top 10 books that I'm going to be reading in this video, and then the final winners and final ranking is announced on December 8th. And so the goal of this video is obviously to read the top 10 books that will be announced on November 17th, and then let you know my personal ranking and whether I agree with how the voting turns out in the final announcement. So, as you may have guessed from the math, we are currently in the opening round, so I only have the top 15 books available to me right now, but I'm not planning to read all 15 of those books because that would just be too much. So in order to not overburden myself more than I already am, I'm going to make some educated guesses as to what books will be in the top 10, and I will focus on those until the official top 10 is announced. So first of all, I'll just start by telling you what books are nominated in the opening round. The top 15 currently include And Now She's Gone by Rachel Hazel Hall, The Wives by Taryn Fisher, The Sun Down Motel by Simone St. James, When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole, Blacktop Wasteland by 𝗕cie 𝗁𝗂𝗄𝗏, The Guest List by Lucy Foley, Winter Counts by 𝗕𝗵𝗵𝗱 𝗠𝗏𝗏, Home Before Dark by Riley Sager, The Searcher by Tana French, The Boy from the Woods by Harlan Coben, You Are Not Alone by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen, Long Bright River by Liz Moore, Unspeakable Things by Jess Lowry, and The Devil in the Dark Water by Stuart Turton. Now, as we all know, the Goodreads Choice Awards is typically a popularity contest. You don't need to have read all of the books to vote, so most of the time people vote for the one book out of the 15 or 10 that they have read personally, and most often that ends up being the most popular book with the most reviews and the most ratings. So my educated guess for which books are going to end up being in the top 10 is based on eliminating the 5 with the lowest amount of ratings, pretty much with a few adjustments. So Blacktop Wasteland, The Devil in the Dark Water, Winter Counts, And Now She's Gone, and The Searcher all have less than 6,000 ratings. But the list of the books with the lowest average rating is quite significantly different, unlike in my previous video with the literary fiction books. So the books on this list that have the lowest average rating are The Wives, And Now She's Gone, When No One's Watching, One by One, and You Are Not Alone. So first of all, And Now She's Gone is eliminated in both categories. It is the only one, so I think it's pretty easy to just kick this one off the list. I doubt that this one will be in the top 10, so I'm not going to worry about it. I really hesitate to eliminate any of the other ones in the lowest rated category, just because they all have a lot of ratings. They're by really significant and recognizable authors in the thriller genre, so I really hesitate to eliminate any of those, except maybe for When No One's Watching, but that one has also been getting a lot of hype on Instagram. I've seen it all over the place on Bookstagram, so I am hesitant to eliminate that one as well. Whereas on the other hand, I really haven't heard much about the 5 that I mentioned having the lowest amount of ratings, so I think it's fairly safe to eliminate those. The only one I hesitate to eliminate is The Searcher by Tana French. I know that Tana French is a pretty popular thriller author, and this book literally just came out a couple weeks weeks ago, so it already has 6,000 ratings with only being out a couple weeks, so I have a feeling that this one's going to be a lot more read over the next couple of weeks, and it might be unfair to eliminate this one. So right now I'm trying to decide on whether or not to eliminate The Searcher or When No One Is Watching, and because I can't figure that out, I think I'm going to leave both of them on my TBR and see which one maybe makes it into the final round. I feel like When No One Is Watching is probably more likely to be in the top 10 than The Searcher, but I'm not totally positive about that. Also, I personally own The Searcher and I'm more interested in reading that one than in reading When No One's Watching. The Searcher also has a lot higher of an average rating than When No One Is Watching, and When No One Is Watching only has about 7,000 reviews, but it also hasn't been out for very long, so I don't know. I feel like these two books are a toss-up, so I'm gonna cheat and leave these both on my TBR and see where it goes. So here are my top 10 predictions with the 11th book thrown in there. These are not in any kind of order because that would just be a mess. I'm not going to predict the order of them, but I will predict the winner. And I think it's pretty clear that The Guest List by Lucy Foley is going to win this category. This book is currently sitting at 125,000 ratings and reviews, while the next highest is The Wives at only 84,000, so this is the clear frontrunner in that category alone, but I believe this also has a pretty decent average rating, so I think this is the clear frontrunner in the category and my first pick for the winner. Now, of these 15 books, I have already read 2 of them, and I am eliminating 4 from the running off the bat, so that leaves me with a TBR of 9 books. And so those are the books I'm going to try and tackle over the next couple of weeks. But I did want to quickly talk about the ones that I've already read. So I have read Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. This is a haunted house kind of mystery story following our main character. Growing up, she lived in this huge creepy house for a very short period of time when she was a child, and then her and her parents suddenly and quickly moved out of this house. Her dad actually ended up publishing a book claiming that this house was haunted and writing stories about it. But when her father passes away, our main character realizes that the house is still in the family, that they still own it, so she goes to this property and is going to fix it up and sell it, but she also really wants to uncover the truth about her childhood and this book that her father wrote. I really enjoyed this thriller. I thought it was really well done. It definitely creeped me out quite a bit. The paranormal stuff always kind of gets me. This is honestly one of the first books that actually like scared me like in real life. So that was very successful. My only complaint was that I didn't really love the twist at the end, but it was pretty cool. It was okay. This also switches perspectives between our main character, and we actually get to read some of the book that her father wrote. That made it feel a little bit repetitive and slow in the beginning, but ultimately I did like those two different perspectives, and I did like the inclusion of her father's book in there. So that wasn't a huge gripe, but it was like a little complaint that I had. I did end up rating this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed it and would definitely recommend this one. I think I'm going to go ahead and put this one in my number 1 slot for now. I did really enjoy it. I really liked it, and it's going there for now, but I don't know that it will stay there. The other book that I have read is The Sun Down Motel by Simone St. James. This is a dual timeline thriller. One timeline takes place in the 70s and the other timeline takes place in present day, and our 2 narrators are an aunt and a niece. In present day, the niece goes back to this hotel that her aunt used to work at in the 70s and subsequently disappeared from. She wants to solve the mystery, figure out what happened. We are also following the aunt in the previous timeline, getting more information about what happened to her and what her thought process was during that time. This also had paranormal elements in it, which was pretty cool. I really liked this one. It was a quick, entertaining read. I think I ended up giving this one 4 stars at the time, but now it sits more at like a 3.5. It definitely was enjoyable. I definitely liked it. I don't have any major complaints about it, other than I thought the paranormal elements were done a little weird and I wish they were incorporated better into the actual plot. But overall, this was a pretty strong thriller and I understand why it's on this list. This is going in my 2nd place slot for now, but this one again probably won't stay there. So I have 9 books to read and I am going to get on that. I will update you when I finish my next thriller. I finished my next book, so let's talk about it. I recently finished Long Bright River by Liz Moore. This book follows our main character Michaela, who is a cop, and her sister Casey got into drugs at a really young age, and that's kind of one of the reasons that Michaela became a cop, so she can kind of keep an eye on the people on the streets and subsequently on her sister. But at the beginning of this book, Michaela realizes that Casey has been missing for over a month. She hasn't heard from her. Nobody has heard from her. So she is trying to find Casey, but at the same time, there's this string of murders that have happened to 5 different girls in the rougher areas of the city, and Michaela's really worried that Casey is going to be next. So that puts a little bit more pressure on finding her, and Michaela is also kind of involved in solving the mystery behind these murders that are happening in her Precinct. So I was kind of surprised by how much I liked this book. Going into it, I wasn't really expecting to like it. I know that somebody I follow on Bookstagram read this book. I don't really remember what she rated it or if she liked it or not, but I remember looking it up at that time and reading the description and not really being very interested in it. So as I was listening to the audiobook, I was shocked that I was as drawn in and enthralled by this book as I was. But even though I liked it more than I was expecting to, I don't think this is going to be a new favorite. It was just okay to me. I liked a lot of the elements. I thought the characters were really well done. There were a couple twists in it that definitely surprised me, but overall I do think I'm probably going to forget this book in a month or two. One thing I did really appreciate is that though our main character was a cop and there was a pretty big focus placed on being a cop, the point of including that was to criticize the police force and ultimately kind of demonstrate some of the problems with it, the corruption within the ranks, the difficulty women cops face. So it definitely had a lot of good, interesting, and needed commentary that I appreciated and that we don't often get in mystery thrillers. So I think that definitely made this book stronger. Overall though, the ending was more of a fizzle than a bang, and I don't always like that in mystery thrillers. I kind of wanted a little bit more from it, and especially like the last little vignette in the epilogue was really strange, like a strange place to end. I don't know if the point just like went over my head or what, but I didn't really love that very much. So overall, this is like a 3.5-star book for me. There were definitely aspects that I liked, but it's not a new favorite. I don't even think it was strong enough to be a 4-star for me. So that is where this book stands. I do think though that I'm going to put it, I don't even remember the ranking. I'm gonna put it not last. The Sun Down Motel is gonna move to last, I think. How many of these books have I read? Just 2? Yeah. So I think I'm gonna put it in between Home Before Dark and the Sun Down Motel. I don't know why that was so difficult for me to remember, but so that is how my ranking stands right now. I will let you know when I finish my next book. Hello. So I do not have a reading update for you, but Goodreads did just officially post the top 10 for every category, so we are going to go through that right now and see if my predictions were correct, finalize my TBR for what I'm going to be reading from now until mid-December when the winners are announced. So the top 10 of the mystery thriller category are Long Bright River, Home Before Dark, The Searcher, The Boy from the Woods, One by One, The Wives, The Devil in the Dark Water, When No One Is Watching, The Sun Down Motel, and The Guest List. So this ranking is quite a little bit different from my personal top 10 predictions. I definitely was wrong on a couple fronts. For one, I definitely predicted that You Are Not Alone would be included in the top 10, and it is not, so that was next. And then I went back and forth over whether I thought The Searcher or When No One Was Watching would be in the top 10, but they both ended up in the top 10 because You Are Not Alone did not make it. So The Searcher and When No One Is Watching are now on my official TBR, and I am excited about that. I definitely wanted to read The Searcher, so I'm glad that one made it. And I definitely think I'm more interested in When No One Is Watching than You Are Not Alone. So honestly, this worked out great for me. I'm excited to jump into all of these. I don't know which one I'm going to be reading next. I am working on my fiction video more so right now, so I will keep you updated when I finish my next book. I am just popping in to update you because I finished another thriller. I read The Boy from the Woods by Harlan Coben, and overall wasn't a huge fan of this one. So in this book, we're following this man named Wild, and he grew up in the woods. He's just like, nobody really knows where he came from. Nobody knows who his parents are. He just kind of grew up in the wild like Tarzan or something. Once he was found, he was taken in by this family in this town, and so he has like a connection to them. He's like the godfather of this boy, and like there are so many characters in this book that it's really hard to explain. But anyway, so the short gist of it is that this teenage girl in this town goes missing, and Wild kind of feels a connection to her because she's an outcast and she gets bullied and nobody likes her, blah blah blah. So she disappears. Wild's godson is concerned about her because he knows that she's been bullied and he wants to make sure she's safe. So he implores Wild to kind of like find her and make sure she's okay. So Wild does that. So basically that's what the story is about at its core, but really it's like about all these different characters doing all these different things. There's like a weird political corruption storyline in this as well. There's scenes of characters in here going on dates. I don't know. This book to me was just a mess. Like there was way too much going on. I really just wanted to focus on the storyline of the kidnapped girl, but that was not the main focus of this book at all. I really didn't care about the political corruption storyline. I didn't really care about any of the individual characters' storylines. This really wasn't very thrilling or page turning. Like it was okay. It wasn't a terrible read, but it definitely wasn't something that I enjoyed very much. I also could really tell that this was written by an older white man who was like trying to be self-aware, and it just was like every time I read a line like that, it just took me out of the story. Like, for example, one of the kids' grandmothers had some thought dialogue that was like, "Call me old-fashioned, but I just think a boy needs a male influence in his life." There was this just awkward piece of dialogue where a character said, "Oh, they're gender non-binary." It just was like, I mean, technically that's the correct term, but that's not how anybody would introduce somebody colloquially. And there's just like jibes about technology and social media and kids living on their phones, like all this stuff. And it's just like, okay, we get your stance. You don't have to put your stance on things in a book. Like, shut up. So those kind of things just like bothered me and took me out of the story. Overall, I think I'm going to give this 2 stars. Definitely not my favorite, and I'm just going to go ahead and put it all the way down on the bottom of my rankings. I am sorry, Harlan Coben. I have never read you before. Kayla from Books and Lala said she didn't vibe with you, so I am right there with her. I don't vibe with you either. So this will definitely not be getting my vote for best book, but what are you gonna do about it? I haven't started my next thriller, but I will let you know once I finish it, whatever it happens to be. I have an update for you. I have just finished 𝗬𝗏𝗻 by Taryn Fisher. This story follows this main character who is in this polyamorous relationship. She believes that her husband also has 2 other wives. She is the middle wife, so she was the second wife. There was an original wife who the husband divorced to marry this new wife. And then there is a newer, younger wife because both of this man's previous wives were not able to have children. That's something he really wants in his life, is to have children. And so he just keeps marrying a new woman, I guess, when the old one can't give him a child. I don't know. I fucking hated this book. I absolutely hated it. I thought it was terrible. It is probably going to be my #1 worst read of the year. That's how bad it was. I don't understand who put it in the Goodreads Choice Awards and who voted for it to get into the top 10. Excuse me? Are y'all on crack? Like, what in the hell? Anyways, so the twist of this is that the woman is crazy. Like, that's the twist. Why? Like, why would you write a book where it's just the twist is that the woman is crazy? I hate that. Like, that's such a bad representation of mental health. It's such a bad representation of like psychoses and different like mental illnesses that people actually have. Like, and you turn them into a thriller trope. Like, what? No, that's not how this works. It's not how any of this works. So, needless to say, I hated this. I'm giving this 1 star, and it is going straight to the bottom of my ranking. No thank you. Please get it away from me. I never want to see it again. But in other news, they did release the winners of all the Goodreads Choice Awards categories, so we're going to look at those together right now, and we will compare my ranking as it stands now to the top 10 and the order that they're in for the Goodreads Choice Awards. So, let's do that now. Alright, so my prediction to win the Goodreads Choice Awards was The Guest List by Lucy Foley, and as we can see on the screen, I was correct. I just predicted that because it was by far the most read in this category, so I figured that that one would win. I have not read that one yet, so I can't say for sure if I agree with that winner. Let's see what else is on the list. First is The Guest List. Wow, it won by so many. That's crazy. Can already see that The Wives is in 5th place. Excuse me. Anyway, Home Before Dark is 2nd, which is my #1 currently. The Sun Down Motel, When No One Is Watching, The Wives, The Searcher, The Boy from the Woods, 1 by 1, The Devil in the Dark Water, and Long Bright River. Very different from my personal ranking. This is the order of the top 10 of the Goodreads Choice Awards. The Boy from the Woods and The Wives are both on the bottom. I really don't think any of these other books could be as bad as those two, so I definitely think that my ranking is going to be very different from this one, unlike in the fiction category. Home Before Dark is up there, which was definitely my favorite so far, but I have yet to read When No One Is Watching. I haven't read The Searcher yet. I haven't read The Guest List yet. I am like 66% of the way through 1 by 1, so I'll update you on that one next. And I've also started The Devil in the Dark Water, but I'm not finished with that one yet. Long Bright River was in the middle for me, not at the bottom, so that's interesting. I think that one just is not as read as some of the other ones, but yeah. So that is the Goodreads top 10, and this is my top 10. I will flip back and forth a couple of times just so you can see the difference. This one's definitely really different, which is funny because I felt like mine was pretty similar as far as the fiction category goes. We're a little bit different in this one. So I still have quite a few books to read, to be honest with you. I was hoping I would be done closer to the time the winners were announced, but alas, I'm not. That's how this always works. I'm a queen of procrastination. So I will keep reading and I will update you as I finish these books, and we will see at the end like how my top 10 compares to Goodreads top 10 and go from there. Hello, I have some updates. So #1, The Devil in the Dark Water by Stuart Turton. I have been listening to this on audio and I am not feeling it. I'm like a third of the way through and I'm just not captivated. I'm not interested in it. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna DNF this one for now. Sorry for not finishing this book in this video. I think my book club is going to read it in February, so I'm going to order it physically and try again to read it physically in February, but for now I'm going to DNF it and put it to the side. So I'm going to technically not rank this one, but I am going to put it above The Wives by Tarryn Fisher because I think every book should go above The Wives by Tarryn Fisher, but technically it's going to be grayed out. So that's what the ranking looks like with The Devil in the Dark Water. And now I also have finished 2 books. So I did read 𝗦𝗏 by Ruth Ware. This is an isolation thriller about this group of people who work for this tech company. They go away to a company retreat in the Swiss Alps in this little chalet to go skiing and to hang out. They also have a buyout deal happening, and so like half the company wants to take it and half doesn't. So they're kind of fighting about that. There is some tension in the group over that, and then people start dropping like flies one by one, basically. I was surprised by how much I liked this one because I think the amount I liked this is an unpopular opinion. I loved this one. I read it so quickly. I thought it was very entertaining. Number one, I really love the setting. I love an isolated, snowy setting. I feel like it just gives such a good atmosphere to a thriller, and that was definitely present in this one. I also really liked all of the cast of characters. I thought they were all super interesting, and even though it's kind of revealed early on who is the culprit, it was still fascinating to like see what was going to happen from there. I had a great time with this one. I thought it was a lot of fun. I mean, it's not like revolutionary, but I don't really feel like any of these books on this list are revolutionary. So this one actually gets a 4.5 star for me and is going to be number 1 on this list now. So there it goes, right to the top. I really loved this book. I can't even like really tell you why other than what I've already said. I just thought it was really good. I thought it was really fast paced and was intrigued the entire time, and that's all I need in a thriller to be happy. So I liked this one. I liked how it ended. A big fan. I really enjoyed it. Next, I also finished The Guest List by Lucy Foley last night, and I really liked this one as well. This is another kind of isolated setting thriller, but it doesn't take place during the winter time. It is following this wedding party as they go to watch their friend get married on this island off the coast of Ireland. And so they're at this like creepy, rainy, cold estate. The story takes place in like 48 hours, which keeps it really fast paced. It's like the day before the wedding and then the day of the wedding. Tensions are running high. There's a lot of different characters going on in this one. There are the bride and the groom, the bride's sister, the bride's best friend, and his wife, the groom, and all of his private school friends being rowdy and weird, and everyone kind of has a secret. It's a very like incestuous group of people. Like everybody has secret relationships with everyone else, so there are tensions when everybody is in the same room together. It switches back and forth between the day before the wedding and the day of the wedding, and on the day of the wedding we find out that someone is murdered, and so it is leading up to the events that led to that murder and like who did it, and you're trying to figure it out. I did not guess who did it. There's lots of people with a motive. So I thought this was a really fun book. I had a great time reading it. I don't really have any major complaints other than I thought the ending was kind of quick and it could have had more of like a falling action resolution, but overall I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was also really fun and entertaining, so I think I'm going to settle on a 4-star rating for this one. So now with those read, I will go through my ranking really quick. Now with those read, I'm going to go ahead and rank them. I'll go through my ranking really quick. So number 1 is 𝗦𝗏 by Ruth Ware. Love that book, really obsessed with it. Best one I've read by far out of all of these. Next is Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. I also really liked this one, but I had a couple more issues with it than I did with 𝗦𝗏, so it is going to move to 2nd place now. And then after that, I'm actually going to put The Guest List by Lucy Foley because I really liked this one as well. And then next, I'm going to put Long Bright River by Liz Moore, and then The Sun Down Motel by Simone St. James, and then The Boy from the Woods by Harlan Coben, The Devil in the Dark Water by Stuart Turton, and last, and very much least, The Wives by Tarryn Fisher. So that is my ranking for now. I have 2 books left to read, and I will update you when I have finished them. I have finally finished all of the books for this reading vlog, so I'm going to wrap up how I felt about the last 2 of these books and then wrap up the entirety of this vlog. Finally, 3 months late. So let's just get into it. The second to last book I finished for this vlog was When No One Is Watching by 𝗦𝘂𝗃 𝗏. This story is set in Brooklyn, New York, in a gentrifying neighborhood, and it follows our main character Sydney, who does not like the fact that her neighborhood is being gentrified. She really wants to save it and honor its history. So she gets in her head that she wants to start this historical tour of her neighborhood. She starts researching for it. One of her neighbors, this white man who is not having a good marital relationship with his current wife and is kind of one of the ones who is affecting the gentrification of the neighborhood, befriends Sydney and starts to learn more about the neighborhood through her, and they strike up like a friendship kind of romance type of deal. It's pretty cute. I do like him as a character. Sydney is a really good character. She's a very interesting character, and them together through their research figure out that there's something really shady going on in the neighborhood. This big corporation has moved in and is building, and they are creating this like rehab facility for people addicted to opioids, but really there's something even shadier going down. So they are figuring that out. I enjoyed aspects of this book, but my problem with it was that there were too many aspects to this book. I really liked the characters and I really liked the discussions of gentrification, and I kind of wish that this book just went with that and it was more of just like a contemporary story with those elements, or even leaned more into the horror aspect of those elements, because those elements are horrifying, and the way that Sydney is sometimes afraid of the people in her neighborhood and the police and like those kinds of interactions. I definitely think that this book could have leaned more into the horror of those elements and made this like a horror book. I think that would have been more effective than what this book ended up being. The thrilling elements in this book I didn't really enjoy, especially the ending. I thought it was kind of bizarre and unrealistic and turned into almost like a sci-fi weird thing. I just think that because gentrification and racism and those things are so horrifying in and of themselves, creating this unrealistic twist ending cheapened those elements in a way, or like lessened the impact of them. I just didn't vibe with everything that went on in this book, and I just think that it could have been stronger if it had had a better focus. Like, I don't feel like it really knew what it wanted to be. I felt like it was trying to be too many things at once. But that being said, I did obviously, like I said, really like the characters. I really liked the discussions and what this book had to say at some parts, but I just thought other parts were really weird and unfocused, and so I didn't absolutely love this book like I wanted to, and I ended up giving it 2.5 stars, which may be a harsh rating for some people, but for me it's like a dead average book. There are things that I liked and things that I didn't like, so it got a 2.5 rating from me, and I'm going to put it between the Sun Down Motel and The Boy from the Woods. And then the next book that I read was The Searcher by Tana French, and let me tell you, if I hadn't already DNF'd one book in this video, I would have DNF'd this motherfucker. It was so bad. I hated this book so much. Basically, this book follows our main character. His name is Cal, I believe. I don't really care. And he used to be a cop in Chicago, but he retired from being a cop because he was just too good of a guy to be a cop in Chicago. That's another thing. Anyway, moving on. He retires and moves to Ireland, where he wants to live this like quiet little frontier man life. But this kid comes to him and is like, my brother is missing. I know you're a cop. Will you help me find brother? Because nobody else in town cares that he is missing. So the cop at first is like, nah, but then he's like, okay, sure. And he goes about trying to find this kid's brother. This book is so long and so freaking boring. It is the most boring mystery thriller I've ever read in my entire life. Like, why would you write a boring mystery thriller? Like, that's just an oxymoron. Like, why would you do that? I don't understand. I don't understand. Number one, I hated this main character. He was trying to be woke, but I could tell that he wasn't. It was like that fake white wokeness, and it just was painful to read about. And like just the discussions of police brutality, I just think this was not the right book to have those discussions, especially in the way that they were had. This book came out in September of 2020. I don't think that was the time to be trying to create a sympathetic white male cop character. I just don't think that that was in good taste, personally, and it frankly made me angry. So I can't imagine how people of color would feel reading this book. It just didn't sit right with me. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, so I didn't like that. I didn't like his voice at all. They just really played up the fact that he was born in like the Carolinas or something, and he would always talk Southern, and like the dialogue, it was just painful, and we were just reminded constantly that that was who he was, that was his personality, and just was a lot to trudge through. And even the storyline with like the lost kid was so freaking boring and anticlimactic in the end, and we spent so much time like building up to this, and it just was such a letdown when we finally found out what happened. I just was not a fan of this book in the least. Honestly, wish I had DNF'd it because it is 451 pages of absolutely nothing, and I still don't know what the point of it was because it just was bad. It was awful. I am giving it 1 star. And it is going to the bottom of my ranking. It has not beat out The 𝗬𝗏s. Like, I'm sorry, it just has not, but it is in second to last place. So there's that. So that is all the books from this reading vlog, but let's go through my final ranking. So my number 1 book is 𝗏 by Ruth Ware. I thought this was such a fun time. I loved the isolated setting. No, it's not anything revolutionary, but I thought it was a great time and super interesting and just a fun, fast-paced read, which is what I want when I'm looking for a thriller. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 is in second place. I also really enjoyed this one. I do wish it had leaned more into the paranormal aspects, but this is one of the first books that has ever scared me, so I really liked it and I thought it was great. Also fast-paced, fun read. The guest list is next, which I had the same things to say about. It was a fun, fast-paced read. I liked the thrilling aspects and just thought it was really well done, and I liked it a lot. Next, Long Bright River. There definitely were some things about this one that I didn't love. It was a little long, it was a little slow, but there were parts that I really enjoyed, and it got a decent rating from me, and it wasn't nearly as bad as some of the other books on this list, so it is here in 4th place. Next is the Sun Down Motel by Simone St. James. I also really enjoyed this one. It wasn't a favorite, but it deserves its place in the middle of the pack, I think, so it's at number 5. Number 6 is When No One Was Watching. I kind of feel similarly about this one as I do the Sun Down Motel and Long Bright River. It was just kind of okay. There were parts that I liked, parts that I disliked, so it is also in the middle of the pack here in 6th place. The Boy from the Woods was the first book that I actively disliked out of this reading vlog. I definitely do not think it was very well done. I thought it was boring. I didn't like the weird misogynistic undertones of it, and I'm not really sure why it was nominated in this category. And then next, I'm going to put The Devil in the Dark Water because although I DNF'd it, I feel like the potential for it is higher than that of The Searcher or The 𝗬𝗏s, and so that like glimmer of hope that maybe when I revisit it, it will be better is enough to put it in 3rd to last place. And then next is The Searcher by Tana French. Boring, 1 star, hated it, honestly. And then in last place, Where It Belongs, is The 𝗬𝗏s. That book was absolute trash and doesn't even deserve to be on this list at all, but there it is. So let's discuss this a little bit. So I'm going to put my rankings over here, and I'm going to put Goodreads rankings over here, and we'll kind of compare and contrast a little bit. So in Goodreads ratings, The Guest List and Home Before Dark are in their top 2 slots, and in mine, The Guest List and Home Before Dark are in my top 3 slots, so those are very similar. I definitely think that Home Before Dark and The Guest List belong up there, so that is good, but The 𝗬𝗏s and The Searcher are in 5th and 6th place respectively, and I am so offended that people voted for those books over 𝗏, which is in freaking 8th place, I think. What the heck? What the actual heck? I'm honestly like so offended. Who did that? Who did that? I don't understand. I don't understand. I really don't understand the nominations in this category at all because I feel like I actively disliked a lot more of these than in my fiction video. In my fiction video, I think I liked pretty much all of them. There might have been 1 or 2 that I didn't like, but here I feel like there was a lot of average reads and there was a lot of reads that I actively did not like at all. That's really disappointing to me because these are supposed to be like the best thrillers of the year. Maybe there just weren't very good thrillers in 2020. I don't think that's the case though. I really wish that this list had been different. I wish this list had included more authors of color. I know that the publishing industry, particularly in the thriller genre, is very white. There are not a lot of authors of color getting published in this genre, but I do wish that Goodreads had tried a little bit harder to feature more authors of color in this list because obviously there's only one as far as I know, and that is Alyssa Cole, who wrote When No One Is Watching. So, you know, there's personally a lot of things about this list I would change, but it is what it is, and I did read some good thrillers because of this video, in particular The Guest List by Lucy Foley and 𝗏 by Ruth Ware, which I probably would have got to eventually, but not as soon as I did, and I really loved both of those, so I'm very glad I read them. But yes, thank you so much for watching this video. I'm sorry if I complained a little bit more about these books than I did in my fiction nonfiction version, but I did really enjoy doing this. Next year I think I'm going to be a little less ambitious and just pick one category to do because this video is so late. I don't know if anybody even cares anymore, but I'm still very proud of it. These are some of my favorite videos to make in the last couple of months. I'm very proud of them, so I do hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to give it a like and maybe consider subscribing to my channel. I post new videos every Sunday and Wednesday, and if you want to follow me outside of BookTube, make sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter. I'm pretty active on both. Any relevant links will be in the description down below, so definitely make sure you check it out. And other than that, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you being here, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.